I don't.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. We again have Representative Judd Matheny with us. We talked to Judd a month or so ago, and in order to find out what this session really was going to look like, they needed to wait until the bills had been presented, and so that's happened, and we can find out now what's on the docket and sort of what the priorities are. Judd?
Glad to be here.
Okay.
Glad to be here. Just rolled in from a day of session in Nashville. We're taping this on Thursday afternoon, and had a wonderful day today.
Good. Well, what's on the docket?
Well, we've gotten busy. I think when we talked about a month ago, we said we would try to come back and give the viewers an update once the bill filing deadline had passed and the Senate and the House have filed all their bills, and that has happened. So we pretty much know what is out there. Of course, there's always amendments that are going to come forward. There's caption bills that are out there that could be changed at the last minute, but we generally know what the major issues are going to be. We don't necessarily know what the outcomes are yet. Some of them we think we know, and we'll talk about those, and others I just really don't know.
Well, guns and education, of course, is getting a lot of media coverage.
Yes.
But what else? What other kinds
Well, we've got
of things?
judicial redistricting. We have workers' compensation reforms. Yeah. We've got some natural gas issues have to deal with fracking, which is probably going to be a really big issue that's coming up. So there's really are a lot of other things. It's just the media is sort of hyper-focused on the education and the guns right now. And I think the gun issue will abate very quickly and simply due to the passage of the one bill that's primarily in question. But the education issue, the vouchers, that's going to be an ongoing.
Okay. And what about on the judicial redistricting? Well, let's take a short break and then come back and go into
and there's a couple other, as we close out the show, just a couple of little things I'll address that I've received some emails about, and I'll, of course, we're responding to those, but I'll also respond to them here.
Okay.
Thank you.
The highest standard of trust offers a sense of safety and comfort. It's established over time. You know when you see it. You know when you feel it. There's a standard of trust in healthcare. It's the Joint Commission Gold Seal of Approval. In 2003, Life Care Center of Tullahoma voluntarily achieved this accreditation and maintains it still today. Life Care, meeting a higher standard because residents matter most.
Let the Smokehouse be your mountain getaway destination in beautiful Mont Eagle, Tennessee. Enjoy our cabins, restaurant, and old general store. Shop thesmokehouse.com featuring homemade barbecue sauces, jellies, and many other fine Tennessee products. Our live Music on the Mountain series features some of the best local and Nashville talent every Friday and Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. No cover, kids welcome.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Representative Judd Matheny, and they got a good agenda on the legislature, so we want to find out a little bit more about what that's all about. And let's start with the judicial redistricting. They're talking about juggling those districts, and there seems to be a lot of controversy in that.
Well, there is, and the proposal for judicial redistricting hasn't been done in about 40 plus years. I think it should have been handled, if it was going to be handled, back when we did contemporary redistricting with the legislative districts a couple of years ago. But for whatever reason, the Senate has decided this year that they want to spearhead a judicial redistricting plan. And I stress the Senate because the only plan that we've seen, or potential idea that we've seen, has only come out of the Senate. There is a possibility that it could get some legs in the House. We hope it won't. I'm firmly opposed to any judicial redistricting proposal that's out there, not only because I think it's untimely, but also Coffee County is squarely in the crosshairs to be changed dramatically. And I don't think it's necessarily a logistic issue. I think it's more of a political issue. And I I am fair, I believe, when it comes to party issues, as much as I possibly can be. And I'm going to criticize my own party a little bit, especially some of the leadership for proposing the plan as they did, because I think it's just strictly to get rid of some Democrat DAs and some Democrat public defenders. And I think there's if they want to do that, there's traditional elections where they can do that, not through the redistricting process, and create a district that I think will be unwieldy for Coffee County citizens to have to handle.
Yeah,
as it's proposed.
looks like there's no particular criteria for the number of the population of the area or the geographical size of it.
That's correct. And myself and Senator Bowling have actually filed a bill. It's called a caption bill, and it just allows us to go in and insert language later, should we need to address that issue, to counter the Senate proposal that's out there now. And I will say that she is dead against the Senate proposal too, that some other members of our party and her leadership have proposed. But she and I are prepared to counter that proposal should it really become imminent that it could pass, with one that would take into consideration population and some more usual characteristics that we see with regards to redistricting, and not just political lines.
Okay. Well, guns have been all over the map. That's one of the hot media topics.
Yes.
And where does that stand as we speak? You've had a lot of opposition, some of it pretty powerful.
Some of it is, and basically we've gone a long way in 2.5 years to get to where we are right now. I'll say that for the last 2 years, the bill that just passed the Senate and is almost, its passage is almost imminent in the House Monday night, was the same bill that was proposed 1 and 2 years ago that a lot of our leadership drug their feet on, and I think it caused a lot of political casualties, and finally they've come around to the fact that the 400,000 permit holders in Tennessee really are the most responsible segment of our population. And the bill that is getting ready to pass just allows a permit holder, and you have to be a lawful permit holder in the state of Tennessee, to keep their weapon secure in their locked vehicle on a parking lot. They cannot carry it on their person, and that would include a business, that would include higher education institutions, as well as K through 12 elementary schools, as long as you're a permit holder. And it's important to remember now that you already can carry your weapon in a parking lot at a K through 12 institution. You've been able to do that for years, as long as you don't wear it on your person, it stays in your car if you're going to pick up your kid, and you could already do that at a higher education institution. This removes the criminal penalty for a permit holder to be on that you still can't go into the building. I could not, I'm a permit holder, I could not carry my weapon into a school or carry my weapon into some building that was clearly posted, but I can have it in my car, and it has to stay in there, and doesn't need to be visible. Now in this bill, and I think we've bridged a lot of the angst that the business community had, and some of our permit holders are still upset over this, but we still allow businesses under this law to post. The posting, however, is only with regards to their in-house policies and procedures. A business can still fire an individual that is found with a weapon, even if they have a permit, if it's outside their car, and they're brandishing it or making a big deal about having it on the lot. Some people have kind of said this is a don't ask, don't tell type of bill, but what it really does, it just strictly removes criminal penalties from permit holders. If you're a non-permit holder and you're carrying a weapon, the same law that always has applied continues to apply. You can and probably will be charged with carrying a weapon for the purpose of going armed, unless you can truly articulate that you were transporting it for a lawful, legitimate purpose, whether to go target shooting or to do a transaction with it. So the bill that's going to pass is simply codifies that if you're a permit holder, you can carry your weapon, but it has to stay in the vehicle. It can't come out on a posted parking lot.
But so to carry one in the weapon, if you're a non-permit holder, to leave it in your weapon, is that presently illegal?
A non-permit holder?
Yeah.
It is technically illegal unless you can articulate that you're transporting that weapon to a target range, or you're taking it to a gun store, or you're taking it to somewhere to conduct a transaction with it, or going hunting with it. Exactly right. Yeah. What you're not supposed to say is that I'm carrying it for protection. That's what the permit is for, that you can go and apply for a handgun carry permit, and then you can carry that and you can say this weapon is for my protection. And that's why I'm carrying it on my person or in my vehicle, depending on what the case is. But the rationale behind the law is that permit holders, we think it's unrealistic that they should become criminals immediately upon turning off of a public road into a parking lot or a place where they work. Now, we still have respected the businesses, and I've chaired a sort of an ad hoc committee for the last 3 months, and worked very closely with a good friend of mine's, Representative Steve McManus out of Memphis, and we have met many times, probably a dozen plus times, with the business community, education community, and they're not particularly happy with this bill, but they have come around far from where they were 2 years ago, and they have agreed to this bill in concept. They would just like some liability protections because they're allowing these weapons more often on their property, and we are granting them some liability protections in this bill. We're still allowing them the ability to post their own private property and to still be able to terminate people for violating that policy. So even if you're a permit holder and you carry your weapon to work and your policies say you can't have it and you're discovered with it, you can still lawfully be fired, but you can't be criminally prosecuted.
Does that include carrying it, having it in the car?
That includes carrying in the car, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, it's really not that bad of a bill. It doesn't go all the way for the pro-gun folks because it doesn't give blanket authority to carry anywhere with no repercussions, and it doesn't take everything away from the businesses because it still allows them to post their personal property and in their policies and procedures dictate what they will and won't allow. But it does remove the criminal penalty, and that's the big thing we wanted. We don't want our permit holders to be criminals automatically.
Okay. Are you expecting it to be passed Monday night?
Yes, sir.
It's already passed the Senate.
It's already passed the Senate. It passed out of calendar and rules on an 18-3 vote this morning, and I predict it. I'm going to rub my crystal ball, and I think it'll pass the House by probably 80-19. It'll be a strong majority.
Yes, that it will. Well, one of the interesting things that cropped up, which I confess I hadn't thought about in that sense, that you may be impacting economic development, trying to get businesses to come in. I know, for example, I think Volkswagen was one of the companies that were named that were unhappy with the policy.
They were, but also many of, I can't say that Volkswagen was in the negotiations, but many of the automotive lobbyists were. I know some that represented Nissan were in our meetings. And once again, we've come to a compromise that I think everybody's worked toward. And we've agreed that a lot of this is much ado about nothing because we don't have a rash of problems on one side of the spectrum or the other. But it's an issue that is very volatile. So we've got to solve the issue and move on. And if there's individual problems that come up, then we'll address those in the future.
Yeah, well, that seems to be always a big question. You know, what problem are you trying to fix? Yeah. And it's kind of hard to put your fingers on one of those. Isn't it?
Well, we're in an era now, Tom, and I'm one of those people where we are exercising states' rights pretty fervently right now. And a lot of us are displeased with the trajectory that the federal government's going on, and we're just beginning to insulate ourselves more and more and make sure that we protect the rights that we still have and that we educate those people around us to the rights that they still have. And it's a delicate balance of not seeming irrational, but at the same time preparing for some things that might come in the future.
Okay. I guess I hadn't thought. Are you saying there might be some federal legislation that would prevent you from passing this bill that you're presently?
Well, we don't know. With the number of executive orders that have come down from the White House, with the number of gun control measures that are out there, there always could be something. In fact, we have, if one wants to go onto the state website, Tennessee.gov, and just type in the word guns in the legislative bill search, the number of bills that come up will be extraordinary. And some of them literally seek to neuter all federal authority in Tennessee with regards, and these are from respectable legislators, that just says that Tennessee will not support any federal legislation, any mandates, any executive orders above and beyond what are on the books now with regards to gun control. We won't use any of our resources. We won't participate in any way. And some folks have filed legislation to actually prosecute federal authorities that would try to cross that line. And it's a unique constitutional question. And we get into supremacy clauses and get into a lot of precedent with courts, and it's a very interesting legal debate. But the entire 10th Amendment argument is researching the argument for more that states, if it's not in the Constitution, the states are in charge of it.
Yeah. But there's a lot of stuff going on that isn't very clear in the Constitution these days. Well, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and go some more.
Grandma. It's Jake. I'm calling to tell you I love you more than anything in the whole wide world, even ice cream. I love you more than spaghetti and meatballs. I love you more than snakes and monkeys and sharks and whales and praying mantises. Bye, Grandma. Love you.
Let it all in with Charter Phone, including unlimited local and long-distance calls.
We're back, folks, and we're talking today with Representative Judd Matheny, and we're catching up on some of the hot legislative items. We've just spent some time on guns, enough, I think. So let's talk about education. There are 2 or 3 new things cropping up in that, Judd. Teacher qualifications, and I must admit I was incredulous that we might have some people going into the teacher programs at the college level with an ACT score as low as 12, and apparently 15 is not. There must be quite a few at that level. But so, is there anything that you can point to going on there?
Well, I don't serve on the education committee, but I've been more hyper focused on the. I use that word a lot, hyper focused. I've been focused on the voucher issue more than anything, and I'm just learning now about what you're discussing and about the various other education initiatives that are out there. I had lunch with the education chairman today, Harry Brooks, and we were beginning to talk about some of these issues. Some of them will come before my committee, government operations, perhaps before they go to his committee or after they go to his committee, to look at rules and regulations and how it will fit into existing state law. So there's going to be quite a few education issues.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, as teacher qualifications, I say, was interesting, and I confess I hadn't really thought about it, but it makes perfectly good sense. There's no point in letting somebody go through the education curriculum if we could tell beforehand, they weren't really qualified. But I guess we don't have any defined.
Well, and that makes total sense. But I have learned in some cases the hard way to make sure that I talk to the teachers before I make a decision on this, and that's what I'm going to go through next, is a due diligence process with them, because it's never been my bailiwick, education in the classroom. I've been more traditional law enforcement and some other issues and military, so I'm really going to default to what the education community has to say, at the same time tempering it with what our parents and what the citizenry has to say. Some are quite frustrated with the education system, not so much here, but I hear it through my colleagues, some of them that are in the larger urban areas. Very, very frustrated. I think that's the genesis of a lot of the charter school bills, the voucher bills, and these teacher qualification bills are the systems that host these failing schools. And unfortunately, a system like Tullahoma, which is consistently in the top 5 statewide, seems to be lumped in with those groups also. And I know it's frustrating. We just have to try to sort through it best we can.
Well, you indicated that I guess largely, generally, our worst schools are in the larger metropolitan districts.
Yes.
So this bill that was introduced that would set up a state representative to pass on those was limited to Nashville and Memphis, which I thought was kind of interesting. But do you happen to know where that stands with respect to who decides on the question of vouchering or charters?
Well, there's competing proposals that are out there, and I believe one of them, or a version of the two, will end up passing. One is to start with free and reduced lunch population in Memphis and Nashville. But then there's another group of people, and I tend to be more on this one, that says, well, if we're talking about a public education system that's open to everybody, we need to have the pilot project open to everybody so we can get accurate data and get accurate feedback everywhere. And that would include our urban and our rural districts, both our failing and our succeeding districts. So there's a competing proposal to the governor's proposal just to start in Nashville and Memphis to open it up on pilot projects, perhaps statewide, on all socioeconomic rungs and performance levels.
Yeah. What was the governor's? I guess I'm not sure whether he had a particular program on that.
He has, the Bully Pulpit is pushing a voucher pilot program. And when I say the Bully Pulpit, that's the governor's office. And I think at the very least, he will succeed in getting his pilot program. I don't know if we'll go on to insert additional opportunities within that pilot program.
This is vouchers.
This is vouchers, yes, sir. And at the same time, I still have a lot of concerns. I met yesterday, the 20th of February, was the Tennessee School Board Association's Day on the Hill. And we had Coffee County and Warren County and Tullahoma City schools were all up there. And everybody's concerned about vouchers, and I'm listening. And they're concerned about potentially lower performing schools being evacuated and the children sent across town, and what's that going to do on logistic issues, and what's that going to do on our space issues. And we just want to make sure that if we implement a voucher program, that it has some premeditation to it and has some predictability for the local school system, so it doesn't upset building programs. It doesn't. Many communities also, by the way, are seeing a decline in student population. So as populations contract, it's going to be even more difficult to use existing facilities, much less shipping them somewhere with a voucher program. We all want education choice. We want competition within the schools to make the best schools and competition amongst the schools, but we don't want to absolutely just wreck a program of public education that we have over, I don't want to say a folly, but something that's not truly tested and that we don't know exactly how it's going to work. But literally, we have smaller families these days. We just have less children that are coming into the school system, and as we get an aging population, we could really have some empty classrooms in the future. And
well, yeah.
And we just have to be careful that we're not all paying for a bunch of empty buildings or partially used buildings, and a piecemeal fix.
But on the other hand, the driver behind this whole thing is to have well-educated kids.
That's exactly right, and
that has to be.
And that's really is, and much of the issues that are coming up now, and this is a theory that I have. Nobody's said this to me, but there's so many people trying to react to an education system that is faltering, that's falling behind both nationally and especially internationally, that there's so many proposals out there that whoever's in power at any particular time or has the most influence may get their procedure advanced a little bit further, but we don't know if that's going to be best or not.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I think that does seem to be beyond challenge is the fact that if you expect to have a good school and educate the kids, the very first criteria is to have a good teacher.
Yes.
And that's one who's well trained.
And once
all
again,
the way
these
around.
same frustrations have manifested themselves in that. We've seen it with the race to the top. We've seen it with the changes in tenure. We've seen it with various issues over the past few years that have sought to tighten up teacher qualifications to hopefully reward better teachers, incentivize better teachers, to help shepherd more qualified teachers into certain disciplines, and at the same time we're trying to make sure that the parents have some choice. And everything is in a great state of flux, and it's very difficult for an educator. And I've learned in the past couple of years just how much whiplash educators have been through with different federal and state programs over the last decade. Yeah. By the time they get one implemented and about have their feet wet, something totally new comes along. And of course now we have what's called the new Common Core standards that are coming out, where everybody all over the place is going to teach the exact same thing supposedly. And that sounds good and it sounds great, especially as we're trying to transition folks to higher education, but not everybody in every system is ready to do that at the same pace right now.
Yeah.
And it's
one shoe doesn't necessarily fit all.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's see. How about the security issues? Anything hot going on there with security in the schools?
There's a lot of bills that are out there. I don't see any passing that have to do with currently arming teachers or allowing permit holders to go on campuses with their weapons outside of their vehicles. There's been some ingenious proposals put forward to allow retired police officers to volunteer, to allow retired military with exceptional training to volunteer to do security, to transition individuals from police line of work to teaching and keeping their certification in process. So I think all those have some potential merit in the future. But when it all comes down to it, I think still we're looking closely at trying to help either through federal dollars or state dollars in interlocal cooperation to try to find more SROs to put in schools, because there's so much unintended benefit from that. Getting to have a personal relationship with the police officer the whole time you're in school is pretty powerful.
SRO being having a policeman or a security guard comparable
Ideally
to
a policeman within a school. And of course that person is armed, but they're also a mentor to the children. And to many kids, that's one of the few solid authority figures that they're going to see in a day.
Okay. Well, guess what, folks? We've run out of time again.
Dadgummit.
We don't seem to get there, so let's take a short commercial break and we'll have to wrap up.
Thanks.
Mark, you've won just about everything there is to win in racing. What's next?
I'd like more people to know about ER Extra.
The emergency room at Harton Regional Medical Center?
I just want them to get the best care they can get.
That just gets me right here, Mark.
Maybe you'd like to pay them a visit.
ER Extra at Harton Regional Medical Center.
ER Extra. Extra fast, extra easy, extra great.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We're back, folks, and we've been talking today with Representative Judd Matheny, and so we know of a couple of three pretty hot-button issues that are on there. Judd, is there something you'd like to speak directly to for?
Well, there's a couple things. I'd like to mention that March the 12th, we're having our Coffee County Day on the Hill, which is an annual event that the cities and many businesses, including Bonnaroo, help host at the state capitol, and all the citizens of Tullahoma or Coffee County that want to come up are invited to come up. Coffee County Conference Center feeds about 500 people that day and caters up to lunch, but we'll have guest speakers and some behind-the-scenes tours of the Capitol. And feel free to call my office, 615-741-7448, about more information about that. And then I want to mention an issue that I'm
Coffee Day on the Hill.
Coffee County Day on the Hill, yes.
Okay.
And I want to mention an issue that I'm getting quite a bit of flack over, and I'm responding to the emails, but we have a perennial bill that goes through about rooster fighting to try to make it a more serious penalty. And I get a lot of pretty angry emails from people because I oppose increasing the penalties on going to a cockfight. The reason I do that is because it costs over $100,000 per incident to prosecute those things and put those folks in jail. The price tag on that bill is well over $100,000. And in this day and age where we're looking for money for SROs, and we've got over 84 children that have died in state custody and DCS, of which I'm chairing hearings on March the 12th also, then I just think it's paramount that we put the needs of humans in front of the needs of fowl at this particular time. Thank you.
So thanks for joining us, Judd.
Thank you.
And thank you, folks, for inviting us into your parlor, and we'll do it again in a couple of months.